Supervisors are present, in addition to the treasurer, office assistants, and clerk administrator. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have a cell phone, if you wouldn't mind turning it off or putting it on vibrate so as not to interrupt the meeting, and a reminder to the board to please speak into the microphones. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we need to approve the agenda, and we are going to take out number 9. Anything else? If not, then I'll move to approve the agenda with the exception of number 9, which will be deleted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gaz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes of the special board meeting of February 18th. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by Forkert. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And then we have the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 18th.
Motion to approve the minutes of February 18th.
I'll second. Motion by Gaz, seconded by Lowry. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Treasurer's report, Janet. Excuse me.
In the municipal checking account, we began with a balance of $2,672,060.15. We did a transfer to our checking to pay our bills. The real estate collection for February and interest brought that balance to $916,680.49. The money market account began with $577,372.94. After interest posted, that account balance is $577,461.52. In the checking account, we began with a balance of $339,373.72. After deposits and transfers, FICA tax, state payroll tax, our payroll and our disbursements, the balance at the end of February in that account is $324,287.53. The utility district funds total $572,247.86, with a balance in all town accounts at the end of February of $2,390,677.40.
Any questions? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Forkert. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next, the checks. Any questions on those?
I had one, please.
Go.
I gotta find it here real quick.
Okay.
It's for 500 and some bucks. It was to pay the attorney to look at the antenna lease. Isn't that in this list someplace?
Shoulder and shoulder.
Yeah. Hang on.
This is the third one down.
From the top? Yeah, okay. So the question is, I understand Liberty Grove should pay that, we engaged the guy, but is that part of, I mean, that's really sort of taking on help from him. Should that be back billed to the applicant to put up the towers?
And the question is, again, what?
Well, Liberty Grove engaged the attorney to write the contract, or go over the contract the person presented to us before. And we made a lot of changes in it,
Correct.
and he was happy with it, we're happy with it. And my question is, maybe the bill should be split or something, or I mean, I don't think Liberty Grove should be on the hook for the entire amount.
My understanding is that they presented the contract to us,
Correct.
and what we did then was send the contract on to our attorney for his input. And now it has gone back, and we have not heard back from them, have we?
Not yet.
Not yet, so,
Okay, well,
okay, anything else? I've got a question on Aeroseal tubular sheet. That's for,
Various lengths and types of steel for equipment repairs and fabrication of items in the shop.
okay. Any other questions anybody has? If not, I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Excuse me, on to public input. This is the opportunity to address the board on any subject that you'd like, and also on an agendized subject. And what we ask, if you want to speak on an agendized subject, we'll get your name down, and when we get to that, we'll call on you. Something very quickly for everybody's knowledge, Nancy, myself, Mary Pat Carlson, and Dave and Karen Studebaker met last week, I believe, with representatives from NWTC, and it was a meeting that centered around their particular kitchen that they have there, what we refer to as a culinary kitchen. It was a very informative meeting. We got into rather a long, interesting discussion with them, and I left the meeting with a sense that they really want to help the community. And after we had the discussion on the kitchen, Dave asked if I would stay, and he brought up the problem we've had, or the situation that we've had in the past, that very often town residents will sign up for a class and it'll be canceled, and in the case of the firemen and so forth, they have to travel long distances. They were very much aware of this, and they have a computer on, what did we say we thought it was? They referred to it as a cow, and I never did get a clarification. But it's a computer on wheels, and they are more than willing to bring that here and to begin offering access for our residents here in the town hall. I'm waiting to hear more. They were going to get back to us with more proposals and so forth.
you
I don't
talking
know.
about mine safety, that kind of stuff?
Pardon?
You talking about mine safety?
No. It would be courses that they regularly offer.
Okay.
But they're trying to make an outreach to the community now. So it's an interesting situation that's beginning to arise, which is very healthy, I hope, for the community. So, Nancy, you want to make a comment on the meeting, or?
It just is very apparent that NWTC is acutely aware of some of the abrasion that has existed between Northern Door and NWTC, primarily for the disparity that Northern Door County property owners feel in what's sent there and what they get in return. And because of that, they seem to be very, very willing to work with Northern Door to address some of those abrasions, if you will. And in particular, with the community kitchen, they have a facility there that is not being used as much as it has been in the past. And their communication with me prior to this meeting was, we're right in our budgeting session now. We will do whatever we can to make that facility usable to Northern Door people for a commercial operation, whether it means buying new equipment or more storage area. They were very eager for this conversation. And as a result, it was productive and it was interesting and encouraging.
Who are the players again?
And
From
in the-
NWC, who are they?
Cheryl Tiemann is, I think she is one of the directors on the campus. Her supervisor in the financial area, I don't know what her last name is, Laurel is her first name.
Sudik, Laurel Sudik.
Sudik, okay. And Dr. Raffin is aware of this. They've been communicating with him as well. He could not make the meeting.
Studi was there. Studebaker was there.
Yes, yeah, Dave was there. Dave and Karen were both there. Okay, going on. Anybody on an agendized item, we'll get your name down and then we'll take general comments. Jim?
I'm here on behalf of the Maloney's
Okay.
variance application.
Anybody else on an agendized item?
And Elliot Bowman is here too.
Okay.
You're on Maloney also?
Yes.
Yeah.
How come we're dropping the
Pardon?
car station? How come we're dropping that?
The which?
Isn't that
Oh,
an-
we don't have enough information on it.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, any general comments anybody wants to make? All right, if not, then we'll go on to the Door County Bicycle Tourism Loops, a request for signage. John?
Hang on. Oh, okay.
Sorry. Here, we can holler and this is.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is John Kaloji, I'm the Door County Highway Commissioner, and I'm here on behalf of a group that is in charge with implementing recommendations that were developed in the Door County Bicycle Pedestrian Recreational Facilities Master Plan, which was completed in December 2013. The county board adopted that document, or these documents, in early in 2014. And there's been an ad hoc group that has been put in charge of trying to get the recommendations that were put within this document and implemented. The plan looked at not only bicycle trails, it looked at pedestrian routes, it looked at recreational routes for everything from equestrian routes, off-road type of routes. So it's a long-range master plan, and that's exactly what it is, a plan. It's put together a lot of good ideas, and we're trying to prioritize those ideas and determine which ones are the best and which ones that we can get done for improving these type of amenities within Door County. The reason I am here is that one of the concepts within this document was the creation of what they call Bike the Door tourism loops. And the document that I handed out, I do have a couple here for the public, but I'm sorry I only have two. But the document I handed out will, if you just turn to that fold-out map, it really shows the northern end of Door County, and it identifies several of the loops. Now, the purpose of the loops is really for the benefit of bicycle tourism. And the concept is actually something that was generated from some other communities. Actually, this is done in the UP in one area, as well as from the National Park Service. If anyone is familiar with the passport program that they have, you develop these passport programs and you visit a national park and you get a passport stamped if you visited or completed it. And the concept is for the improvement of tourism, as well as the creation of a recreational biking trail, that we would create these loops. And actually, the Tourism Bureau, Jack Moneypenny's group, is very interested in implementing this program if we can get some of these loops developed. And and development of the loops really requires signage. And then, of course, carrying out the necessary maps and the promotional materials in order to do that. But as you note, you note, a lot of these loops contain roads that are not just on county highways or state highways, but they also are on town roads. The reason I am here is that we were approached, our implementation group was approached by the Board of Realtors, who has availability of some grant funds that they want to apply for to develop the signage as well as some of the promotional material to initiate one of these loops. And we asked them to select one, and of course, they selected one in the town of Liberty Grove. And one of the reasons is that it's actually probably the shortest one of all of the loops, so it would have the least cost. They don't have a significant amount of grant funds available. They have not applied for anything because the very first step that we needed to do was come to the town to find out if there is interest in allowing signage to be put up on the town roadways. And the signage would consist, if you actually turn to the third page of the document, or I mean the last page of the document, it simply would be, you know, the small bicycle routes, which you already do have on some of your roadways. And I noticed actually when I drove one of these roads today, you actually have a bicycle route on some of these roads already. But this would also, it would have not just the signage, it would have informational things. Signage, for example, which way to Gills Rock, or which way to Ellison Bay, or which way to one of your park systems. The maps that would be developed would identify maybe points of interest. Go to a park, go to a county park, a town park. Stepping off places, you know, where could you park, where can you find public facilities. It would be, the signage would be related to public facilities. There would be no private type of advertisement, so it would just be related to the route itself or to public amenities and critical points that you may want to have. We've not developed the number of signs. It wouldn't be a significant amount of number, but from our perspective, what we were hoping is, first of all, that the town would permit this installation of these signs, but then, just from a standpoint of long-term maintenance, if the town would be interested in continuing to make sure that those signs are in place in the long term, that they would absorb the future costs of replacement of those signs. And again, I don't have those costs. We needed to start, first of all, if there is an interest from the town board to allowing this to happen. If you note on that, back to that map page, you note that another loop is, which is the second loop south, and it's called the Bays Loop. And granted, these names aren't cast in stone, everything is still up in the air, but that second loop is much larger, and it again contains a lot of town of Liberty Grove roadways. There is a third one that is located in the town of Liberty Grove, however, that is primarily located on County Highway Q and doesn't affect any of the town roads. So I bring that, we bring this to you today for your consideration. I wanted to make it very brief because, you know, I'm not anticipating an answer today, unless you all feel this is just a wonderful idea. But I think it's something that certainly promotes tourism, which is very important to Door County. It promotes safety, that's the important thing, in that encouraging bicyclists to go on particular routes. You know, from a safety standpoint, a lot of these routes were looked at to make sure that, and we still need to look at those, so some of the roads may change, and you may want them changed. And we're certainly absolutely open to that. But we're trying to keep them on the low-volume roadways, which wouldn't require any type of additional width on the roadways, because the state requirements, federal requirements, don't require additional width if your traffic volumes are low enough. That's something that we looked at as part of the original study. So.
And John, is the first one the one at the Gills Rock?
Yes,
Newport?
here's a little more, I brought this map, which is a little more detail work, but that is the one that we want to use as kind of a model to implement the entire program.
You know, would there be an opportunity for special sign about a safety hazard, though? Like, you know, for example, that one, in fact, we have somebody here who could testify to the apparent danger on Garrett Bay Hill Road
Oh,
on a bicycle, for example. That's a very, very steep, it's beautiful. Would there be some opportunity for like a warning sign to bicyclists? I mean, there are motorist signs that say,
Caution, steep hill.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the truck on the incline like that.
You always have to be careful, what my knowledge is from my highway side, is you always have to be careful to acknowledge a safety issue. When you say caution, steep hill that's okay, but you can't say caution, unsafe area ahead.
Oh, no.
You know,
Caution,
that,
steep hill.
so you have to, yeah, you have to be careful on what you actually write down, because you might be accepting a liability there, and
Right.
Jim Smith might agree with
I
that.
can understand
So,
that. No, no.
yeah,
So,
okay.
because, I mean, one meant for the bicyclist on this thing as opposed to a regular, that said steep hill, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But for a bicyclist, because they'd be looking at these green signs, and I'm sure they look at the regular road signs. But that in particular seems to be a particular point that it seems bicyclists should know about that.
Sure, and we would work with the town if they wanted to have any particular, what you feel is, you know, steep hill, caution, steep hill ahead, that type of thing.
What's the timing of this, John?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
I really don't have it yet,
Okay.
because it's gonna take a lot to put together. First, if the town gives us the go-ahead to start the process, then we would start inventorying what the type of signs that we would need. The Board of Realtors would then apply for the grant for it, and I don't know that entire process. I don't know how much money they would get. So funding is still just a gray area. If we could have it accomplished in this calendar year, I think that would be remarkable. But there's really no time frame.
What is the thinking down the line as to who pays for the signage and the other loops?
We would continue that, because it becomes real difficult. For example, if the highway department decided to take over maintenance of any signage on Town of Liberty Grove, we would continue the request in every town that we would go to. Whoever has jurisdiction of that roadway would do it. There is an exception to that. The state won't pay for it, so it really is gonna become the county, very likely on the state roads, but then we're asking for the towns to participate.
And not to muddy the waters and make it too complicated, because I think it's a terrific idea, and the last thing I'd want to do is sort of complicate it to the point where it doesn't go through. But let's say, for example, you know, and you'll hear, if you hang around, there'll be a presentation tonight on the steps the town is taking toward promoting the heritage roads that it's designated. It's really an offshoot of the rustic road concept, but for the town. We've designated those as heritage roads for their scenic and historic significance. And eventually, in promoting those, the town will have signs on the roads that would have that very well might be appealing to the bicyclists as well. Not necessarily only on the routes that are there. But my question though, John, is, again, not to muddy the water, but do you think there would be an opportunity for us to add something to the sign, not to the sign stand that would say Heritage Road whenever that time comes?
Oh, I think that's absolutely possible. And in order to keep costs down, a lot of these signs can be placed on other signposts that are already out there, with the exception of stop signs. You can't put anything else on there. But, you know, other, you know, directional signage or any arrow signs and things like that. These could be posted right on existing posts.
Any other questions?
I just would comment, is, probably everyone knows I have a small inn. And I would say that at least 50%, probably 70% of the people who come and visit us have a bike rack on the back and a couple bikes. Biking is a great exercise, and people enjoy it in Door County. It's the best way to see it. And I would like to encourage us to go forth as
Yeah, I feel the same way. This just goes hand in hand with Liberty Grove wanting to brand itself as a green community. And with Sagbrow coming in August, we're going to have 200 to 300 bicyclists here, right here, staying in Liberty Grove for 2 days. It'd be nice if this were ready by then, but that seems to be a bit ambitious. I would be very supportive.
I only like making one comment. These loops are really small for a bicycle. I mean, they'd buzz around that 2 or 3 times before your eyes blink.
This is by far the smallest one.
Yeah.
And I did not give you the southern door loops. They're probably 4 times the length,
Yeah.
so. But that's true. This, however, might be one of the most scenic ones.
And
I would think.
challenging, too.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right on bicyclism. I mean, in the last 10, 15 years, it's been amazing what you see, what is happening. And what's wonderful is that it's the shoulder seasons that it's really building out on, which is very good, real positives.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for signage.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
No, thank you, John.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I could leave this, but would you want this if anybody has any
Yeah, I think
information?
that's a good idea.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, going on to number 10, Heritage Road promotion. Phil?
My name is Phil Hansotia. I live in the town of Ellison Bay, and I was approached last year with a request to consider a studied recommendation to develop a way of promoting our heritage road system for visitors and for residents of not only Door County, but Wisconsin, and people who visit this place. And the mission statement that we developed on the basis of that was to come up with an artistic presentation of the Heritage Road idea to attract the general public from Wisconsin and elsewhere to visit and preserve the roads and the territory around it. So that's what we undertook. The members of the committee that did this include James Moronic, Lou Kovatsos, Tom Tariff, Bonnie Peruk, Rob Williams, Gary Harbour, and myself. As a general background, settlers came to Northern Door to homestead and settle this place. They cleared the land, developed farming and fruit-growing industry to begin with, and then later on developed settlements and townships with the facilities that they had. And the roads at that time, in that phase of the development of this area, were basically dirt roads and had a stream of traffic which was not considered heavy. Beyond that point, at the turn of the century and around the 20s, we began to develop automobiles and other forms of vehicular traffic, which established a pattern of usage which hit the main centers of interest in what we call Liberty Grove Township today. This later on was blacktopped and improved, and is in general referred to as the Heritage Road System, because it dates back to the history of the development of this township, and today stands with its usage as representing the areas of interest in this town. So that is what the Heritage Road system is. These roads are listed as they were listed by the board and have been approved for this particular designation. And so we looked for ways of representing that road system. There are 14 of them listed, to find out how we can encapsulate the attractiveness of the roads and any other aspect that we could promote through either through the written language, poetry in this case, through photography, and through paintings. What we have is a partial display. The paintings of Jim Moronic are not over here. Lou Cavazzo's and my paintings are on there. There were 2 poems written by Lou and 2 poems that I have, and I'll read one of them.
By Jim.
I mean, Jim, sorry. And I'll just read one of mine to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that we've come up with. And Tom had photographs, which are just superb photographs. We had a great deal of difficulty picking 2 out of those, but we do have those, and unfortunately, he's not able to make it, so we don't have that display. You'll have a chance to make up your own mind about whether these are appropriate and sufficient to meet with your approval as display units. And I'll make a comment on that at the end of the thing. The idea of these different forms of presentation is it allows a certain versatility in promoting this mission that we are talking about. And we were not able to do more than recommend an additional step to be taken later on, depending on how you, as a board, choose to use them for display. If you're going to use them at meetings where you have a large group gathered in one place, then it makes sense to have a panel, a system of panels in which the photographs or the paintings are displayed, and the poems, if you will, or the photographs, if you will, along with whatever the focus of the panel is, or the meeting is. The other way of using this material is to develop brochures which would represent the whole unit and could be passed out for whatever reason the board is having either a meeting or a discussion or a mailing. The disadvantage of the brochure approach is that it shrinks down the size of the paintings and the units that are visually attractive, and the impact is a little bit less, but that's for you to decide which way you want to use that stuff. The and the history of the roads is going to be contributed by Gary, and will also be part of the material that we used. Here's an example of something that can be in either form. We have two poems I've written and 2 of the other. Twinkle, twinkle, little stars, you light our skies like fireflies. On full moon nights with clear skies, you pulsate in the dark like butterflies. By June, our quaint old roads are lush with myriad greens, fruit trees of multicolor, and carpets of dandelion yellow for visiting leaf peepers, all ready to go. Au revoir to the peepers, the hummingbirds, and migrating folk up to upraised multicolored arms of maples, aspen, birch, and oak. A kiss to the lingering charms of pretty leaves and feathers till we meet again. That's an example of the kind of stuff that, you know, could tickle people's fancy.
Would that be a moronic poem? Who wrote that?
That was it.
I feel.
You did? Good.
Yeah, Jim has his poems, but he's not here, so
Okay, good.
I don't have those. Actually, I do have them. If you want, I can read one of his.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I've made my point. I don't want to belabor it unless you have questions. But we are presenting these in their raw form to you so that you can then consider the next step in terms of how you're going to use them and take it from there. I just want to make one personal comment. This board that I worked with was just a delight. These were a group of people that worked very well together. It was a pleasure. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be
Questions,
happy to
anybody?
take them.
When you first started out, Phil, you said you were approached to consider the promotion of heritage roads. For the record, who approached you to do that?
I think members of the board,
Yeah.
Lou Kubat
Yeah,
says.
okay, it came from
Yeah, I had been challenged, if you will. I've given the opportunity by our chair to follow up on what the Highway Committee had done, the Heritage Roads Subcommittee on the first part, and then the Highway Committee thereafter, to do more than just have material that has a list of the road names. I analogized it to having the Mona Lisa as in our possession, but hiding it in the basement and nobody would see it and enjoy it. And that in order for us to market these gems of roads that we have for the historic and scenic and other aesthetic aspects of them, that we would put together a script, so to speak, or start to put together a script. Because what Phil has done very graciously and competently was marshal people like Jim Moronic and Tom Turriff, for example, and then some other artists, and in both the literary and graphic arts, to start putting the script together. So that when it does come time for us to figure out a way to promote the roads for tourism and otherwise, that we'd have something to work on. And Gary, through the Historical Society, has been researching some of the information that we can present to people that Phil kind of prefaced his remarks with, that there is a history here as well, the heritage part of the heritage roads. And now the question is back to the board, so to speak, insofar as we possess this material, whether it's written or otherwise displayed. And now, when it comes time to promoting this, for example, it might be a great opportunity to be, if there was a visitor center for the town, this would be a great opportunity to have this as one of the major displays there, something that wouldn't fit in the little kiosk we have right now, but would fit into a regular visitor center, which, but then how can we go beyond that? How do we market this? It might be part of the slideshow that is shown, the beautiful photos that are shown on the town's website. And that might be integrated into that somehow, but then there are maps that you'd want to go, just like Commissioner Kaloji brought today. There would be maps that would have the roads there as well. Not to mention, ultimately, signs that bicyclists and others might use to go through the road. So, but those are things that come down. But what we needed, and what I think the town owes Phil, is a real a debt of gratitude for the work that's been done to get this started. And go much further even than just to start on this as well.
Thank you. If I could take this opportunity to mention one other observation which was incidental while we were doing this work. This Garrett Bay Hill Road is one of the heritage roads. It's very attractive, but there is one issue that I think, especially since your biking trail is coming up for consideration, that really has to be addressed if it's going to be included in that trail. That steep road goes down and meets a road that crosses at, it's perpendicular. There is no way any biker going down that hill can turn fast enough if there's any traffic coming through. And there's no signage, and there's, in fact, that thing has to be addressed in terms of changing that curve or whatever the engineers decide to make it. It's a very high-risk corner. And we noticed it and took some photographs and thought we'd pass that on to you. We didn't do anything else with it.
And to also echo Phil's personal comment about the group that got together to begin this process, there'd been, as we all know, how contentious things had been with all of the highway and road issues that we've had. And to me, I think being able to do this in a very constructive and very creative and constructive way, with as much civility and care as it's been done, is a real testament to how we can sort of spring back from such a contentious period of time. And I forgot my other point, but.
I think somewhere in that presentation, Phil hinted at us being art critics. I don't think you probably want to have us do that. I'm sure we do not have that background, so. Yes, Frank.
Just for those in the audience, I think we've worked very hard on the Heritage Road program in the last 5 years. We have it. It's one of the few in the county. And at the beginning, when I was involved in it and through all those years, I felt very strongly that we needed a marketing type approach towards letting people know about it. And I think the first logical, simple step is to develop a brochure, get it in the pockets, get it down into Sturgeon Bay, and maybe some way we can reach to the other bicycle organizations that come here and make sure that they have copies of the brochure. This, to a certain extent, falls under the Door North group, and maybe it's going to take some cooperation to do this. But I think there's a definite mission here to, let's market what we have. It's organized, and now you've given us a beautiful, beautiful way to present it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The, if at the annual meeting, the clerk treasurer's position is approved, it'll spare up time for our administrator to perhaps work on some of these projects. It's absolute silence over there.
I'll try to find the time.
Well, thank you very much. I'll make a motion to accept the report that has come in and the artwork, I guess, at this point in time. I'm wondering if we might be able to set that up for the annual meeting, which is coming up on the 21st of April. Would that be a possibility?
Absolutely.
I think it'd be a great thing to do, so. And I think we'll use, perhaps have the map that John has given us at that meeting also. Okay. Thank you very much.
Are we, you made a motion?
I made a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Nancy. Any other discussion?
So where do we go from here?
That's a good question.
Well, I think what Frank said, I think we try to figure out where we might be able to set up something. And I think we should also contact Darcy from Door North
Right.
and see how we could integrate the program into whatever, to market it as best we can.
You're coming up with some of the historical background, am I correct? And maybe once we get that in place, it'll give us a little bit better idea as to where to go.
Yeah, and this is just a fraction of it, and then what Phil had in mind was to present what has been done, at least from a graphic point of view, to several of the other artists on the list who haven't contributed yet, who would then sort of fill in some of the gaps
Oh, okay.
in their own way, so that they would even supplement this. But this, and I'm sure Phil will agree, this is in no way a finished product. This is something we hope
Start.
will be something that people can contribute to in any way that they could, whether they're members of residents of the town or not, to keep this as vibrant and as expansive as possible, and inclusive as possible.
Okay. All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you again. Going on to number 11, consider request to treat the invasive species in Fitzgerald Park. You have a copy of the, I believe, of the email that was sent from Mike Schneider at the clearing. Any questions?
I guess we should find out with the application if they have people doing this that might be certified or trained in the application of herbicides.
That's a good point.
I think you have to actually have a license to buy it to begin with.
Yeah, probably.
Well, if it's just Roundup, I don't think so, but
Yes, they use Roundup.
still, if you're doing it in the public domain, that brings up an issue too.
It would be
Is-
under,
Is Mike here tonight, Schneider?
no, I thought he might.
I'll check into it.
Okay, I will make a motion that we accept the offer of the clearing crew pending clarification of certification, if certification is needed. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion?
Did Nancy do that?
Lou, I'm sorry. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 12, consider Class B beer and liquor license application, Fireside Restaurant. I asked Janet, just as a matter of everybody's knowledge, if she would go through the various licenses that are available. There tends to be a little confusion every now and then as to what license is what. So before we get to the application, would you mind doing that? And then,
Okay, now this is just for the Class B liquor and Class B beer licenses.
right,
Not the Class A, not the temporaries, nothing. This is just Class B liquor and beer. We have 5 regular licenses, and they're all taken. Well, 4 of them are taken. We're assuming number 5 will go
Right.
tonight. We have 1 reserve license that is taken. Waterfront Restaurant has that. And we have 3 above quota licenses. Those are all, we can have more of those if we need them, but the above quota license requires 300 seats in a restaurant. Or it's either 100 or 150 rooms in a hotel. So, those you can have any number as long as they meet the requirement. And the
Clerk.
regular licenses, we need to have an increase in population of 500 before we can get another one.
What do you do with a Class B license? Hate to ask a dumb question.
Class B allows you to sell alcohol or beer at your establishment, and the people can drink it on the premises.
So a restaurant. Okay.
And you can also carry out.
Okay, going on to the application, are there any questions?
Where is the Fireside Restaurant?
Hillside?
Oh,
Hillside.
Hillside, all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the application of the Fireside Restaurants LLC.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
I think we're all looking forward to that. so.
Yes.
Well, the menu is up on the website.
Yes, I know.
Good. And the website is thefiresiderestaurant.com. We brought some business cards so that you guys can all reference that and let us know what you think. Yeah, we're opening May 1st.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Okay, going on to number 13, consider plan, commission recommendations. First one is a variance. Kevin and Laurel Carter Maloney. Nancy, turn that over to you, and then we'll get Jim.
Well, this was a difficult one. We've had a bunch of them, a couple of them anyway. It was complicated, because instead of just one request, there were multiple requests. There were a variance on the south and actually two on the setback. And only the single application. So sometimes when we're listening to or hearing a request like this, there's a situation where one or two of the requests are more persuasive than the others. In the case of this one, those of us who voted to deny felt that the porch was a want, not an actual need or a hardship, the lack thereof. Also, those of us who voted to deny saw on the site plan a viable building envelope, which was not utilized, and referred to the suggestion that Lonnie Manuel made in his letter regarding a better design could perhaps avoid the necessity of a variance. It did not appear to us that a different design was considered, only that the property owners had a draftsman draw what they wanted, not necessarily what would fit in the allotted space. The garage, again, those of us who denied referred to the recommendation in the zoning board handbook to, if we considered granting relief, it should be minimum relief granted. A 24 by 24 foot garage, which is standard garage size, would have fit within the setback without a request. We also had a letter from the neighbor on that side who said, please don't allow this, it's close enough the way it is. She did not want encroaching upon her side yard setback. And we also felt that the master bedroom could have been designed to fit within the existing building envelope. Now, I will say that the vote, when it was taken, was close. It was 3-2. And I'll let Lou talk about those who voted in favor of the variance as to what their reasoning was.
Yeah, the variances are very difficult. They're so close, and yet, it's always refreshing to have constructive disagreements and without any contention whatsoever. And there was obviously some disagreement among the commissioners, which I think is just a reflection of how difficult the variance questions can be in terms of how close they can be. And I think, to speak for the minority on this one, the owners took great pains to construct on a very unusually positioned lot, to not go any closer to the ordinary high water mark, which could have been an issue, and instead went in the opposite directions. Unfortunately, and I think I agree with Nancy, had there been an opportunity to know whether there were other viable, I forget the word you call, the way viable options,
Building envelope?
the envelope, yes, thank you. Whether there were viable options on the envelope other than what was presented would have been helpful. But at the same time, though, I think the minority took the view that, and agreed with the idea that the porch was a want, but that looking at the intent of the setback ordinances, that the building and the variance would not necessarily conflict with the intent of those, with the ordinance. So we were taking a little bit more of an expansive view of that, but respectfully dissented, but it was close on that
Okay.
one.
Jim?
My name is Jim Smith. I'm with the Pinkerton Longford in Sturgeon Bay. I'll try to keep this brief, but that's gonna stand up there. Anyway, as you can see, this is the, and I don't know how much of this the rest of the board has seen, certainly presented before the plan commission, of course, but this is the site plan of the property right here. The areas in green that you can see are those which require a variance. On the west side of the property, it would be a variance from the road setback for the master bedroom, a small porch along the front of the house, and then there's a garage building here that is within the road setback and also within the side yard setback. Now, excuse me, as Lou said, you know, we're not asking for a setback from the sacred ground, namely the ordinary high water mark. Everything is a setback from the road. And if you look at this side of the chart, let's see, here's the driveway that goes into the property right here. And everything to the north and everything to the south is very well screened by cedar. So anything that is added on to the west side of the house within the setback is not gonna be visible from the road. It's a very, in my opinion, I would call this de minimis in terms of the variances that we're asking for. They're not huge at all. And part of the problem with going north in the building envelope is that if you look at the photographs of the north side of the house, and say, okay, well, let's just go in the building envelope and go north, all of these trees are gonna have to be taken down. That's gonna cause destruction of the property. And the Maloney's wanna keep the house. I mean, the house is, I think the footprint is something like 32 by 32. It's a one-story structure. But they have it in their mind that they wanna keep that house and add on to it. They don't wanna tear the house down, go stick it in a landfill and start over again. So that was the challenge that Elliot Gettleman had. It's like, okay, how do you add on to this house that's already there, make it look decent, and yet not end up with something that looks like a mobile home when all is said and done. So his goal, I believe, and he'll explain this to you in a second, it was to, okay, let's put the addition on the north, the bedroom addition, but let's try to keep it such that it's not going to cause destruction, and we're not gonna have like a dog-leg house on the property when all is said and done. Because as you'll note, going back to the site plan, the house, you know, is at an angle to start out with here. Had it been put in or built straight up and down and parallel to the building envelope and the shore and the road, might be a different story. You might be able to go north without having to encroach into the road as is shown right now. But again, when you get down to the purpose of the ordinance, the purposes of the Door County zoning ordinance, if you go through them, and I'm not gonna go into all the details of that, but the granting of the variances that are being asked for in this case are not gonna have any adverse effect on any of the purposes of the Door County zoning ordinance. Also, you know, road setback variances are for safety, so that people aren't building up to the road and cars aren't gonna come crashing through the house and so forth. Those are the historical reasons of having setbacks from the road. Likewise, the setback from the lot line is to allow air and space between buildings. It so happens that to the south of this property, yes, a lady did write a letter and say that she was opposed to the variance, but she also said in her letter that she was in the process of selling her lot, I believe to the Door County Land Trust, and they were gonna put a public access in down to the water off of the road here, so, I'm not sure, you know, what her point is at this point. If she's gonna, build a house on her lot and complain about the fact that the Maloney house might be a little bit too close to the line here, that's one thing, but she lives in California. Somebody told me, and probably hearsay, that she hasn't been up here for a long, long time. So, I mean, I take that criticism with a grain of salt on the south end there. Some of the other things that were brought up at the Plan Commission hearing, there was a comment made by the opposition, if you will, that because the Maloneys knew of these restrictions on the building envelope, how narrow it was, that's a self-imposed hardship. Well, there's a case in Wisconsin, it's called Shallow versus Waupaca County, 139 Wisconsin, second 284, a 1987 case that says that if you buy property that's got a restricted building envelope, and the owner of that property before you had the right to apply for a variance, which you would have had that right, you have the same right that they have to apply for variances. That is not a self-imposed hardship. So that's number one. Number two, there were comments made about the unique property limitations, that this was not a unique property limitation, because there were other lots up and down the shore that were also very narrow. However, in doing some checking on the zoning in that particular area and the lots that were created, first of all, the southerly lot of the two Maloney lots, and there are two 100-foot lots that are joined together. The southerly lot was created in 1968 before zoning ever went into effect in Liberty Grove. It didn't go into effect until, I want to say, October of 1968. So these lots were created at a point in time when, many of them were created when there wasn't any zoning. Thereafter, it seems that the county kind of piecemealed everything together. They granted a variance or two up and down the line. They approved a certified survey map in this area where there's a 3-lot certified survey map. But the Maloney lot is actually the widest single lot in this whole area. The fact is, however, that it's a very shallow lot, and that's where you run into the building envelope. So, in my opinion, this is ripe for granting variances in this case. It's not on the shore, it's up against the road, it's well screened. To me, it's a case where variances should be granted. So, I don't know if you have any other questions. I just kind of wanted to skim over the surface of this stuff rather than go into the depth that I went into at the Planning Commission level.
Just real quick, Jim,
Yes,
there's water on the east to this?
yes, the water's to the east,
Yeah, okay, and then
Yeah.
the red, right,
right out there.
the red box you have on the side, that's the building,
That's the building envelope, yes.
Right.
That map was prepared by Bodwin, reviewed by Rick Brower, and that is the building envelope.
okay. And that's 75 feet back from the water or whatever, and,
Right, this is 75 feet back here. Everything is beyond the setback except for a part of this deck. It's hard to tell from looking at the file down there how this house ever got built the way it got built, but it's just one of those files at the planning department. I think that somebody, you know, they kind of stuffed it in the drawer and left it there, so. Anyhow.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for me? I'd like to have Elliot Gelman just come up,
Sure.
and he has a few comments about, you know, why the thing ended up going in a northwesterly direction rather than being up inside this building envelope. You wanna use my,
Yeah, I'll just, while you got it up here, and I don't know if you folks have any other questions right away, just hop in or tell me or whatnot, but, going back, this was a very difficult one when I was first contacted over a year ago by the homeowners through a builder that I worked for. You know, as a designer on this project, like what I do right away always is a site analysis. Basically contacting Rick Brower at the zoning office, talk to him about our options, about our building envelope, making sure there's a proper site plan. And knowing that the environmental impact was one of the most important instances to the Maloneys, that was kind of a driving force of like keeping the existing cottage where it is. Even though as a designer, when I look at something that's askew in an incorrect angle, I'd say, or a not very common angle to the building envelope lines, That makes it very difficult to build on any additions that, say, a mason and/or contractor, anything that can actually, we've got a lot more room for screw-ups with angles like that. If it was a common 15 degree or something, then it's more understandable. But this is really kind of makes me wanna, and from a cost value also, is like, well, if we can, you know, keep things straight at 90 and 45s, you know, we'd be better off that way.
How big is that building? 30 by 30?
32 by 32 is the main structure. The garage, another reason too, is that the garage, they wanted to keep it where there's already a lot of trees cleared, you know, to the south end. The driveway is already in a location where it is, so we don't have to move the driveway, we don't have to add a culvert, which really does, you know, we talk about water movement, topography, that's, you know, affecting that in a major way. The size of the garage being a little bigger is also because we had to stick a second bedroom and bathroom up above it, and also incorporate a staircase into that as well. So my recommendation to the homeowners was, first off, we're not going over the high water mark at all. I won't design that way, you know, that's kind of a piece of my philosophy. You know, having this existing shed being where it is, I said, and to be honest with you, I was trying to reach, you know, before that, but after kind of the needs of my clients, you know, we said, well, this is the maximum we're gonna go, you know, you're allowed to ask for variances, so we'll go to here. You know, that's basically kind of why we ended up there. I'm just gonna look at the notes real quick. Yeah, the biggest thing is just, you know, always, I had Rick Brower in talking about this project. He's very familiar with it through the last year of its, and this wasn't the first, you know, there were many conceptions from when we first started to where we are now. And this was kind of where we got to the point that we thought we're not asking for too much. We know we have to ask for a little bit. You know, also is one thing, if you can kind of follow, you know, we're keeping things further away from the road, even to where the house already is. It's just such an awkward property that, you know, this is where we ended up. The other thing is too, is the amount of square footage that we're adding that's over, you know, that we'd be requesting a variance on. Basically kind of adds up to what is already over that is non-conforming. So it's kind of another wash up, you know. Anyways, questions?
You're gonna add a second story to this unit?
No, the garage is basically like a story and a half, so we got like 4-foot knee walls up, and we're gonna frame you know, a bedroom, bathroom up there. So, but no second story to any part. The other reason I wanted to keep the knee walls above the garage is to keep the height of the overall structure down, so we're not exceeding the zoning height, we're not even actually going near it, we're keeping it low. I think the top of the garage is about 25 feet.
So that's gonna tower over that house.
And that's the nice thing about coming down Appleport Lane, being a dead-end road, is like having the house kind of be able to hide it a little bit, and they wanna kind of give it an old barn look, feel a little bit, so. It's kind of gonna be a unique structure. We really wanted to make it aesthetically pleasing for the neighborhood. So, we worked hard on it.
How old is that building there? I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Nancy?
Once is okay. The question I have, and one of the questions that the Plan Commission struggled with, I see the need for more room, but we really felt the porch was just a lot. What's your take on what is the hardship there?
Here's the hardship that, and this was something discussing with the homeowners that we were, you know, we start with design, we start at certain sizes, you know, and I reminded them, and through important, so we have no basements, we have no above garage attic, so we have no storage. So the extra space in the garage and that screen porch are becoming our extra storage spaces. And because they're planning to move here full-time, you know, it's really, you know, instead of having to rent, we know that, I wouldn't even know where, I guess, Appleport Storage would be the closest place to have. But, you know, those are doubling as, you know, we're, instead of even adding on more this way to give them more space to put stuff, we're double using spaces, I guess, to say, so.
So it's gonna be a screen porch, you said?
Yeah, and then we're still, like, so this area right here will be screen porch. And actually, it does.
I know, I think what we're referring to is the one on the
Porch
left
on the
there.
right.
Oh,
That-
sorry, I'm
That
sorry.
requires a
Okay.
variance from the road setback.
Two, you know, that one is basically aesthetically for the house and also to protect that side of the home. So we know we have like the cedar trees that are very up close to that side, and for those reasons in general, aesthetics, and also because we're changing I guess on the floor plan, I don't know, if do you guys have these sheets, the 11 by 17?
We have
Okay.
it on
The floor plan, we're changing the main entrance to the home to here, okay? So instead of just having, you know, like your typical walk upstairs, you know, we're gonna have to have something, you know, in order for landing stairs to go up and in, and then instead of just having a door with no coverage over it, you know, we opted to have a very narrow, it's only 4 feet out, but a nice long porch to give it a nice horizontal look. And also to be able to keep things out of the rain, to help protect that side of the house, so. I guess I always try to find a lot of different reasons for why I do things when I'm designing.
Had you given any serious thought to just starting again?
That was actually one of my first suggestions when I met with Kevin and Laura. I said, you know, a project like this, I've done a lot of different projects even for my own, and I know like how far ahead you can start when you start new. And they were very adamant about, you know, kind of personal feelings to this cabin, not putting it into the landfill in instances like that. So they were very much, they said we want to try to keep the cabin as much as we can.
And I'm looking at it, it's got glider windows, appears to be. That's as bottom line as you can get.
Yep.
It's probably 2x4 construction, right?
It is, and that's, I mean, you know, the part of it, the main shell will be all done, but the way that the landscaping is around, also I think with the laws pertaining to the deck existing over the high water mark and things like that, is that it really has to kind of stay as is, you know, unless we tear it down. But
Although
siding,
the-
windows will be redone.
The elevations show that there'll be extensive changes to the windows.
Yeah,
and,
on the water
I
side,
mean,
definitely.
basically, you're gonna keep the frame of the cabin.
Yep, and the floor and the crawl space, and,
Yeah.
sure.
Boy, if I was full-time coming up here, I'd be real leery of doing that.
Any other questions anybody has?
All set.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move the board support the variance requested by the Maloney's.
That we do support it?
Yes, at 10490 South Appleport.
Second.
I'll second it.
Lou got
Lou
it.
did, sorry.
Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Conditional use permit. John Wheeling.
No, Goss and Mulligan were nay on that,
That is correct.
okay.
Thank you.
Nancy again.
This was a refreshing hearing. The planning commission was impressed with the thoroughness of the application and the preparation. The applicant also had the support of several neighbors in person and letters of support. An extensive file of certifications and veterinary accolades, if you will, as well as neighbors saying that everything he does is, oh, I'm sorry, thanks, Mike, as well as neighbors affirming that everything that's done on this farm is done in a first-class way as far as keeping things neat and clean and the animals well cared for. According to the application, it's our understanding that this is not going to be another farm, if you will, with walk-in clients. It's going to be by appointment only. and nothing is being rushed into the bathroom facilities, according to the applicant. Will be done according to the plan, but it's going to take a while, so probably not up and running this summer as an agriculture. By fall, yeah, that's what I was saying. So, we gave it unanimous support.
Questions, anybody has?
I'd like to reiterate what Nancy said in terms of how well prepared and how well John does things. And I think it would be, for the town to support this in every way we can, it would be a benefit not only for the property owners, but for the town, and for a lot of people who will, I think, experience something, a really great learning experience as well.
Okay, anybody else?
No, I'll make a motion, we send a letter of support down to the county in support of the additional use.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Gaz. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And
One
then
more.
the David Barnes.
Yes. This
Nancy?
was, this was an absolutely fascinating variance. It was just fascinating. And I'll try and briefly outline why. There were definitely unique property limitations. You may be familiar with the location, very steep slopes from Beach Road down to the edge of the escarpment. You would have loved this, Lou. You would have just loved it. The person, or the owner, Mr. Barnes, is actually going to be, or proposing, his property has almost 7,000 square feet of asphalt, including the drive and areas around the cottage. The entire cottage sits within the high water mark at this time, as does all the asphalt. His proposal is to remove 6,800 plus square feet of asphalt and replace it with flagstone walkways and 3 patio-type areas. And in all the remaining green space from where the asphalt is being removed, he has hired Door Landscape, which specializes in native plantings, to do native erosion control plantings. So what made this so fascinating is we had to kind of work the variance backwards, if you will. There really is no hardship because somebody would like to have walkways and patios. So that would kind of throw it right out of the variance realm immediately because it doesn't meet one of the 3 legal criteria. However, he did meet the unique property limitations. No harm to the public interest was a no-brainer, replacing asphalt with native plants on the Niagara Escarpment. But if you can't meet all 3, supposedly you're supposed to kick it out. However, in our guidelines, which Bud pointed out to us as we went round and round with this, saying, how can we pass this? How can we pass it? The general criteria of the county ends with one final consideration. Will granting the variance serve an overriding public interest? If yes, granting the variance may possibly be justifiable even if other criteria point towards denial. This case was absolutely custom-made for that criteria. And we all said hooray and passed it unanimously. I recommend the board support it as well.
Anybody have a question?
Wasn't there, well, I'll second it for
Well,
argument.
okay.
One of these
Was
had a
that a
whole bunch of-
motion, Nancy?
What's that?
Was that a motion?
Well, no, because we
Right.
did put a condition
Okay.
on the motion. We did notice in the site plan that what they had labeled patio number 2 is even closer to the high water mark than the furthest edge of the existing asphalt. And the condition we put in the motion is that that patio number 2 be moved back to area that is currently occupied by asphalt.
Where's the map that comes with these?
I don't have it. It is,
It's over here on the table.
yeah, there's one over there, and then they also sent it to the 11161. Well, let's see, in our, did just the Plan Commission get the electronic copy? Okay, yeah.
Is this the one that they're gonna dry a lot of topsoil in?
Yes,
So I have a slight problem with that. So if you take, I mean, there's so little topsoil in Door County. If you put a foot topsoil here, or a square yard topsoil here, you've probably moved 3 or 4 cubic yards of dirt someplace else to bring in that dirt. We just don't have that much. And I think that instead of topsoil, should be some other medium put in there, like chips or something like that.
it's hard to grow plants, even native plants, in chips.
You know? That soil's just gonna percolate down through that bedrock, won't it?
Not with the erosion control plants. Door County Landscape knows what they're doing.
Okay. You want to make your motion, please?
Yeah, I will make same, yes. I make a motion that the town board send a letter of support for the Barnes variance request for 3 patios and the walking paths with the limitation of placing patio number 2 in an area currently paved. The request meets the unique property limitations of steep slopes with with removal being replaced by natural plantings. It meets the no harm to the public interest. And although hardship is questionable, granting will serve an overriding public interest.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Lou then. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Drug collection program. Janet? I asked Janet to research this one. This comes from Jack Travis.
You checking for drugs or what?
No, yeah, having to travel to basically Sturgeon Bay if they want to dispose of drug,
Oh, yeah.
medicine and that. So, Janet?
Jack Travis came and suggested that we look into the possibility of having maybe a twice-a-year collection, like we do the recycled appliances and paper, and see if the sheriff's department would be willing to come up and collect for us rather than us having to drive down to the sheriff's office. I have not contacted the sheriff's office to see whether they would even do that, but I did contact Chris Hecht to see if we could do something at the fire station. And he was going to look into it. He has not gotten back to me yet. But that would be another suggestion if there was a way to have, because the EMTs are stationed right there, if there was a way to have a collection either periodically or, 5 days a week like they do at the sheriff's office. So,
And, excuse my ignorance, but I've heard of the programs, but is it mostly for environmental reasons? It's not to deposit that kind of chemical into?
correct. It's so that you're not flushing it in your toilet and sending it in through the water system.
Any questions? I think we'll let Janet pursue this, if that's all right with everybody.
Put it on the next agenda.
Okay. Then going on to number 15, consider application to modify Raleigh's Bay launch ramp. But
Seeing the town will be getting the permanent easement from the DNR and the Raleigh's Bay property January of 16, we should be starting work on improving that area. And one of the first things to improve by consensus and various discussions would be the launch ramp, because at this time, when you back into the launch ramp, you can barely get out of your vehicle to get out. And I think that's a safety issue that's been there for a long time. So what we need to do is apply for a permit, DNR Chapter 30 permit, to improve that ramp at the minimum and make it approximately as wide as the Ellison Bay ramp for safety and convenience reasons. The permit, we've got the paperwork all filled out for it, and it costs $303 to submit that. It has not been acted on or formally acted on by the Raleigh's Bay Committee at this time, or the Parks and Property Committee at this time. I guess if the board would approve this, we do need the authorization to spend the money. It might be contingent upon the Parks and Property Committee coming to an agreement or recommendation on that. But we do need to get going, so we get this in by May 1st in order to get on the Waterway Commission agenda for any upcoming meetings that are coming up. So that's why I threw it on real quick for the board to look at this and possibly authorize the spending of the funds to get the permit process rolling.
And this is for a application for a grant to do the work?
Correct.
You're shaking your head no, and you're saying yes.
No, what'd you say first?
Grant.
So it's for getting a grant.
The Waterway, we'd apply to the Waterway Commission for up to 50% of the project,
And where's the other 50% coming from?
town funds.
Town.
How's Ellison Bay doing? It needs some work, right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, the long dock that goes out had to get pushed back this spring.
That's in the works. We're submitting it to the insurance company so they can talk with Bayview's insurance company, and then they can come to an agreement as who's gonna pay what.
Now, would this grant be for work done in 2016?
Or 15 or 16. Probably, it'll be 16. We
It has to
could
be
do it in
16.
15, but I think we'll be doing it in 16.
Is there some awkwardness in that we don't own the property?
No. We've been told all along that, seeing we're getting the easement in January of 16, that the town can go ahead and start applying for grants and doing the work.
To the DNR? That sounds
Right.
strange. Okay.
So how much money do you think we're talking about here?
Pardon me?
What do you think the town's share will be?
I have no clue. We have to go out and get bids on it once Parks and Property decides to go ahead with the project. But we'll have some estimates to put in the application once we get everything.
So is there like a floor or limit we're gonna put on this so that if it's $1 million, we're not gonna do it, or what?
It's up to you guys.
I don't think there's any question but that the ramp needs to be widened. It's almost impossible to get in there and out of there the way it is. And I think we should go ahead and get the permit and the grant and start now. We can always stop. And since it's not gonna happen in 2016, we'll just have to fit it in the Parks and Property budget for 2016.
And where does the $300 come from?
Well, we've got money in the Raleigh's Bay
Okay.
account yet.
Okay.
That comes in from the launch fees that we collect at the box there.
Okay, so the question before the board is, since Parks and Properties has not met on this, they will at their upcoming meeting. This is kind of a preemptive approach, because we have the May 1 deadline?
Correct.
So what, what we're being asked to do, basically is say, yes, you know, begin the process of applying for the grant. And if Parks and Property says they don't want to go ahead with the project, then we just pull the application,
Well,
so.
Could we make the agenda state that this is the board's recommendation that we proceed with the approval of the Parks Committee? Are they gonna meet before the 1st of May?
We might, if we can get a quorum together.
Yeah, they've been having a little problem on that one.
And we'll get we can get an estimate from a engineer on how much it'll cost to do that. Preliminary estimate that we'll use going forward at the grant meeting.
Are we gonna have a board meeting the first Wednesday of April?
It is not scheduled at this time. We very well could. I mean, that's not, wouldn't be a problem. We haven't got a figure though on what the engineer is gonna cost.
No.
Well,
For
I've
the,
said this before, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg.
for the permit itself, though, I don't think we need an estimate on the cost of reconstruction, do we? Yeah, we don't need a cost for that. We just need the diagram and the general description of what we're gonna be doing for the permit. And we have to have the permit in place before we can go to Waterways to apply for the grant. So if we,
So what you really want is an authorization for, say, up to $5,000 for an engineer's.
no, all we want is the $303 to get the Chapter 30 permit,
Okay.
which we need in hand before we can even get a nickel out of the Waterway Commission. So the Waterway Commission will be a separate application
But
once,
do you need an engineer study to go to the Waterways Commission?
we might. If we want to get close with our numbers and present a accurate presentation.
Well, what's the wish?
You know, I would move that we allocate the funds out of the Rowleys Bay account, a line item, whatever, for the $303 for the permit, just for the purpose of being able to proceed with the grant money. I mean, it's sort of that same
Okay.
chicken and egg thing, what comes first? And I know it's a $303 that might not bear anything for us in the town ultimately, but at the same time, it might bring a lot back in terms of grant. I think it's a $303 investment that we should take.
I'll second.
That's a motion, Lou?
Yes,
Yes.
Good.
it was, yes. Any further discussion?
Just to get the timeline right here, you take the 303 and get the permit. Then in order to go to the waterways, you need an engineering study. Do we have money budgeted for that?
We have, I don't know the number, do you know the number left in Rowleys Bay? I think we got $10,000 or $12,000
Okay, so we do
So
have
we
money
got enough.
budgeted for
We
it,
got
okay.
in that
Okay.
range for,
I wouldn't want to be sitting here after the permit's in hand and saying,
Right.
where are we going to take the money from?
yeah, no, we've
Okay.
got enough for that.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to go on
Motion.
record.
Okay,
I just think it's
motion
tip of
carries.
the iceberg.
What did Hugh just do?
I did not
Nay.
support the motion.
Nay?
Okay, going on to 16, consider establishment of electronic newsletter. I put this on here, I know this is something Frank has talked about for years, of getting on a newsletter. Considering the cost of a newsletter, I think, what were you talking about, 3,500? No, not that much, okay. 2,200. I had the idea that maybe the thing we could do is develop an electronic newsletter, and if people wanted to receive it, you know, we could do it quarterly or monthly, probably quarterly. I don't think it'd be necessary to But what I'd like to suggest is that I begin working with Janet on this, and we'll see what we can come up with, and then we'll bring it back with our ideas on it, so.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
We should do it.
Yeah.
Would be part of our website.
It could be, sure,
Yeah.
sure,
But it would be just something that would be distributed
sure.
not
Anybody that gets
necessarily irregularly.
website,
It doesn't have to be a
says
regular monthly.
newsletter,
No,
they
no,
get into
no,
it. That's a good idea.
You know, and I could take an example, Carl sends out the homeowners association email, and you communicate with.
Yeah, it's an email
I think
blast.
those are very much appreciated, especially by people who are not full-time residents, who are away and love to hear about what's going on. I think that we could take a page from, so to speak, from that type of, just information getting out there.
I have a dozen, 10 organizations I belong to up here do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
It's really common.
Yeah.
Sure,
Mhm.
good.
When we were talking, not a couple of weeks ago with Rizzo and Rob Burke, that was one of the things, he said, what are you gonna do to keep this alive?
Going, yeah.
And he mentioned the importance of a newsletter and keep people informed, so
Let's go.
go hand in hand.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
and I don't think it should be, though, not to get ahead of the game, but it shouldn't be a bulletin board. Because I think the website and the notices are what a bulletin board type of thing is. I don't think it should be the thing that notifies people that there's gonna be well, maybe not the recycling, because that's rather unusual, but it should be something that has content about where the board is on a certain issue, what issues are there, what's been happening, more than it should be just a bulletin board, because the website does that.
Well, I envision that committee chairs and so forth would,
Yeah.
submit.
That's a great idea,
Yeah.
I think. It's a great idea.
Okay, launch pass applications, we have, I believe, 3. And they've all had their certificate naming us as, okay. Then I'll make a motion to approve the application of Beacon Marine, Lakeshore Adventures, and Bayshore Outfitters. Is there a second?
Second that.
Was that a second? I'm sorry.
It is.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Operator license applications.
We have one, it's for Lauren Shar, who is, involved in the Fireside Restaurant.
The agent?
She is the agent, yes, and she's passed all of the tests.
Okay.
I'll move approval of the license application.
I'll second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence? For lack of it.
We have correspondence. We have a little pamphlet here from the Public Health Department with the results of the beach testing from last summer. And of the parks that the town had tested, or that were tested, apparently Ellison Bay Town Park did not have a gray warning day. Europe Bay, they've got Europe Bay 1, Europe Bay 2, and Europe Bay 3. I don't really know what that means. There's no explanation in the pamphlet, but out of these 3 categories, there were 2 days that were gray warning days. The E. coli value, for instance, on one of them was 344.8, but then the next day that it was tested, it was down to 7.5. So exactly what goes on with these readings and how that comes about, I don't know. Similar with, for instance, looking back on Ephraim here, they had a gray day of 648, the next day was 203. The following day was, or 2 days later, was 8.6, so it beats me. Sand Bay Town Park, there was one gray day of, warning day of 461. The next day, the reading was 1. So, but not knowing exactly the threshold and what the bottom lines are, it's hard, there was nothing else in the pamphlet that explained it. On Thursday, April 2nd, the RPC will be meeting for John Whaling's rezone and his conditional use permit,
What's the date, John?
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
2.
There will be a phosphorus summit at the Neville Museum in Green Bay, Wednesday, April 1, put on by Reed Ribble. And he will be there along with a number of other officials, the DNR secretary, and various other officials from the Farm Bureau, the DNR. That's April 1st at 7:30 to 11:30. There's a second one on Transportation Summit, Thursday, April 9th, with a similar format going on at NWTC, Mason Street, Green Bay. The Board of Adjustment on February 24th passed the Heather Passow variance. They granted that. We have the liens that have been filed against various properties for non-payment of taxes. The Towns Association March report. Press release regarding the county assessment proposal in the governor's budget, which I guess it's thought that's not going to go anywhere, but this was put out pointing out the ramifications of that, which in the press release that I have here are negative implications.
Just so that everybody understands that, there's a proposal in the state budget right now that the counties take over doing all the assessing, so it would come out of the hands of the local municipalities. It's, I gather, getting a lot of resistance. This has popped up occasionally over the years, so.
We have our workers' compensation audit adjustment. Our estimated annual premium was $12,928. Actual calculated is $11,883. So we'll be receiving, or may have received, a refund of $1,045. Saturday, April 9th, April 25th, from 9 to 11 a.m., there will be a breakfast meeting of the county clerks in Egg Harbor. Representative Joel Kitchens has been invited, and the League of Women Voters is involved in this too.
Can hardly wait.
Pardon? Dorca-Iwani County Legislative Days. There will be a planning session. They are planning now the topics to work on for the legislative days, and there's a website to go to on SurveyMonkey to get information on that. And Rob Burke will be here in a day or a week or two to go over that and interview people, talk to people who are interested in participating.
Okay, I will be meeting Friday morning with the Door County Land Trust and Joel Kitchens on the stewardship grant proposal to eliminate that till, what is it, 2020? So, yeah.
13 years.
Easy.
Yeah. Okay, future meetings.
Can I make a quick comment, Bud? I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but you can get new titles and license plates from the clerk of courts, or county clerk down in Sturgeon Bay. You don't have to go to Green Bay to get a new title or get license plates. Pardon me?
You don't have to leave your house, you know,
No, you can do it online. Yeah. Future meetings.
Can you get a permit for a handicap accessible space too? The same way?
I think you can, can't you, Mike? I think you can, that's on there.
You do just about
Yeah.
everything except the passport stuff, and if you're getting a new license, you still
Yeah.
gotta go down
Tomorrow at 6:30, the Board and Finance Committee are meeting. At 9:30 in the morning, there is a phone conference with the DNR. Fire Board meets Monday at 8 a.m., and also Monday, in-person voting starts. On the 25th, Plan Commission is meeting to discuss the comprehensive plan, transportation element. Public test for the voting equipment is March 31st, beginning at 4 o'clock and ending on April 1st at 4 o'clock. No board scheduled for April 1st. April 2nd, the RPC meets for the Whaling zoning change and the conditional use permit at
What,
2
o'clock?
2 o'clock.
Thank you.
Well, did you say, is there a finance meeting tomorrow night, did you say?
Yes.
He
Yeah.
didn't say, but there is.
6:30,
6:30.
6:30? Here?
Here.
yes. Good Friday, traditionally a day when the office is closed. However, thanks to our good friends at the GAB, the office must be open for people who want to come in and register.
Not
Doesn't have to be open for voting, but it has to be open for people who want to come in and register. If we're not here, we are supposed to put a phone number on the door if someone shows up that they can call, and then we would come running over here to register them. That's from our friends, I might remind you, at GAB. You can figure out what that moniker means on your own. Monday the 6th, Highway Committee at 8 a.m. We'll be opening bids for paving. Spring election, April 7th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. April 8th, the Plan Commission meets. We have there is a conditional use permit on that one for a residence over 5,000 square feet. April 9th, Rob Burke will be here to meet delegates that are interested or have signed up to go to legislative days. That'll be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's April 9th. Town Board on the 15th, Door County Legislative Days from the 15th to the 16th. And the annual meeting will be the 21st of April, 7 o'clock.
Okay, in keeping with providing everybody with a rule, and this one is in honor of Frank, who, as I go through this, will understand Frank has attended meetings beyond belief, so. This is rule number 501. It comes from Henry Chapman, who happens to be a politician. Quote, having served on various committees, I have drawn up a list of rules. 1, never arrive on time. This stamps you as a beginner. 2, don't say anything until the meeting is half over. This stamps you as being wise. 3, be as vague as possible. This avoids irritating others. 4, when in doubt, suggest that a subcommittee be appointed. And 5, be the first to move for an adjournment. This will make you popular, and it's what everyone is waiting for.
I move to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.